Hello, everyone. Welcome back again to WNY Athletics High School Football Weekly. I want to take a moment here to bring something to your attention that has affected us up here. You may recall a former assistant football coach that walked the sidelines at Timon and then at West Seneca West during their state championship run. Rich Sanders, who was also a guest and a co-host of ours on Inside High School Sports on WGR on Saturday mornings. Rich, over the summer, moved his family back down south, which is where he grew up, for a better opportunity. And while they were down there, Hurricane Dorian started to move into the area, and they were evacuating where Rich's family was settled. And as they were evacuating up north, his young son, Andre, was complaining of some stomach pain, some stomach issues. So they checked into a hospital in Atlanta. And he was supposed to go in for an appendix removal. That's what they had thought. And unfortunately, the situation was a little worse. Young Andre has a form of a rare kidney cancer, if you will. And that's the news that no parent wants to ever hear. And I saw this all over spreading through social media. And, I still think of Rich, highly of Rich. And so when I heard this story, being a father myself of a young guy, it really had an effect on me. So hitting kind of close to home. So they have put together a GoFundMe page to help the family with the medical expenses that are going to start piling up. So if you can, there's a link on this website or on this video here that will tell you where you can go and help contribute, make a donation, if you will, to help Rich's son out and Rich's family out. We'd really appreciate you taking the time to do that. Every little bit helps. But, Rich, we're pulling for you guys and your family, and young Andre, before you know it, you'll be up there doing cartwheels and handstands and wrestling with your older brother. So we're praying for the Sanders family and young Andre, and we'll see you guys soon.
This is Andre. He is 4 years old and was diagnosed with a rare kidney cancer. It was discovered as his family evacuated their home in Florida due to Hurricane Dorian. They evacuated to Atlanta outside of the storm's path. During this time, Andre complained of stomach pain, and a tumor was discovered during a routine appendix removal surgery. His family had just moved to Florida a month prior from Buffalo, New York. Now, due to insurance coverage, they must relocate back to New York for his chemotherapy and continued treatments. This will be a long road ahead to complete healing for Andre and his family. Please consider helping them financially with anything you can for this unexpected event. Thank you.
Welcome to the Western New York Athletics High School Football Weekly Show with Frank Wolf and Dick Gallagher, brought to you by Scroy Financial in West Seneca, Danny's Restaurant with 2 locations, 3715 Genesee Street in Cheektowaga and in Orchard Park on Abbott Road near the stadium, and G&G Fitness at 7350 Transit Road near Main Street in Amherst. Check them out on the web at livefit.com.
Welcome back, everybody, to another exciting show today of WNY Athletics High School Football Weekly with Frank Wolf and the wonderful Dick Gallagher from WGRZ High School Sports. It's episode 2. Week 1 has come and gone, and there were a lot of big surprises around Western New York as far as high school football concerns, some breakout performances. What were you doing on Friday night?
Well, Friday I was watching Sweet Home over at Williamsville South. And Jamal Lewis put on a show and a half. And Jeremy Zimmer really, and the coaching staff, deserve a lot of credit because of what they did to get those kids ready. They got a big line. They have tremendous athleticism. They're going to be a force to be able to get to the Section 6 champion game.
Yeah, and we'll be talking a lot about Jamal Lucas and the rest of the Sweet Home Panthers and coming up in just a little bit. Today's show is brought to you by Scroy Financial of West Seneca, New York. Plan, protect, invest. Scroy Financial out in West Seneca. The West Herd family of dealerships. Visit them on the web at westherd.com. And, of course, G&G Fitness which is where we're going to be next Tuesday filming this show at G&G Fitness out on Transit Road, livefit.com. So those are our show sponsors. Again, Dick, week one's come and gone. There were a number of teams that really showed up to play, and there's a few others that just weren't ready for week one, personnel-wise, whatever. But if you look back at all those games, starting with Thursday's North Tonawanda Niagara Wheatfield game, players came out of the blue to have really unbelievable debuts. I started Thursday with this Matt Lejak kid from Niagara Wheatfield, never played football. He comes out and I believe he has a couple of touchdowns. One in the first play of the game, he returns a kick almost the length of the field for the first score to set the season up. And he had another touchdown late in the game, receiving touchdown. So Niagara Wheatfield out of the gate looked pretty good. Chris Gordon wasn't too bad under center, taking over the reins from Jordan Parks. North Tonawanda seemed to play pretty tough, but as the game went on, you could just see that they weren't ready to match up with Niagara Wheatfield. So it could be a long season for Coach Rick Tom out there. As long as he can keep those kids grounded on the same page, they should be able to hopefully gut out a couple of wins. But it was a tough night Thursday.
I was talking to one of the coaches during the winter as far as what the Falcons football team looked like for this year. They weren't too complimentary. They thought they were going to be rebuilding. Well, they pretty much dominated the Lumberjacks, and it was a good win for them. And they got a tough matchup coming up this week, but they'll be competitive.
Yeah, and it was a good crowd too for opening day. We have been waiting for the football season to start, and everybody was there. Good media coverage and so on and so forth. Mark Adair was out there, and I seen a bunch of the Trench Trophy guys. A lot of Connolly Cup reps were there, so everyone was just waiting for the season to open. It did, and we got a pretty decent game Thursday night with Niagara Wheatfield. But then we headed into Friday night, and that's where really a lot more heavyweight matches were going up. The Class B game that I said keep your eye on, Maritime this year. They're going up against Cheektowaga. They may surprise them. Cheektowaga wasn't quite ready for that game. Maritime took advantage of a short field on a number of occasions. They had some really impressive drive starts, and that really did Cheektowaga in. So Maritime gets their first win of the season, 18-12 over there. But I expect Cheektowaga to come back and play much better this year. They have a quarterback that transferred in from Bennett.
First time in a long time, several years, that the poll today coming out in the Buffalo News didn't have Cheektowaga as far as one of the top 10 schools. And if you look at it, they've had dominant performers at quarterback for about 7 consecutive years. They have an outstanding GV program. Western New York Maritime has tremendous athleticism. They've got good coaching, and they're going to be a force. It'll be interesting to see if they're going to be one of the two teams in their league.
Yeah, and then there's some other really big blowouts, so to speak. Lakeshore 62-22 over Eden. I don't think anyone expected them to win by 40 points.
Well, if you look at it, Dan Russell is always smiling on TV doing the weather for Spectrum. And then when you look at some of the excerpts from different things that they did last year, and that had to be one wake-up call for Eden, but it also is a wake-up call for Lakeshore that they've got some talent, particularly Mike Neary and what he was able to accomplish in that game.
Yeah, I believe he finished with 3 passing touchdowns. He had 3 rushing touchdowns. Almost had 400 yards of total offense himself. I mean, it was a bit of a lopsided game, no doubt about that. Lancaster rolled Hutch Tech. I received a lot of messages from the Hutch Tech crowd saying, hey, thanks for the bulletin board material and this, that, and the other. And, hey, why do you think we got to play catch-up? Well, you found out Friday how far you have to go to catch up and be able to compete with those teams. So the bulletin board material I put out obviously didn't pan out because Lancaster 51-6. I mean, from start to finish, it was ugly.
I think the concern for the Legends, though, was Jason Manzella, the junior quarterback who's been a 2-year starter. He only I think it was 4 for 14 in the first half. He's going to have to play much better, particularly when they get into better competition in the AA.
Jerkowski had an 80-yard. Ethan Jerkowski had an 80-yard kickoff return. 8 different players carried the ball for Lancaster. Total team effort. Jerkowski, along with Cody Phillips, they really stood out for the Legends on Friday night. Orchard Park had a very big win over Frontier. Jack Sharp, 24 of 29, 5 touchdowns there. Just shy of hitting 300 yards. So Orchard Park is off to a flying start, of course. Saturday's game, Savon Van Sickle in Jamestown, they went out to Syracuse to play Baldwinsville. He finished with 2 touchdowns, 177 yards on the ground. So Jamestown's off to a pretty good start, matched up against a non-conference opponent out there in Syracuse. Dejai Perry did a number on Clarence this past Friday. He had 190 yards and 2 touchdowns. So Bennett, offensively, that's where it starts and where it stops is with Dejai Perry. He looked very impressive. So in Class AA, at least, the teams that we thought were going to have good years are off and running. Niagara Falls won Saturday in a sloppy game against Lockport. So we'll have to see if Niagara Falls is better than what they showed on Saturday. Even though they won against Lockport, it was kind of a sloppy game.
One of the things I think to look at is with Bennett and having the J Parry and his brother, who's only a freshman, 6'3", 190 or 210, had outstanding game, 7 tackles, a couple of sacks, only a freshman. He's going to be a force on both sides of the ball. But if you take a look at what transpired the first week, I think Lancaster, Bennett, Orchard Park, and Jamestown are 4 of the best of the 9 teams in that league.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. Class A and A1, Niagara Wheatfield obviously with the win Thursday. Kenmore West won, McKinley won in Brian Davis's debut. Hamburg had a really big, real nice win over Williamsville East, blanking them. I think it was 28-0. And then in A2, South Park's off and running with a big win over Grand Island. Star Point squeaked one out over Kenmore East. And then, of course, West Seneca East had a big win. And as you mentioned earlier when we opened up, Sweet Home got their first win since 2017. Jeremy Zimmer, congrats to him. And the other coaches that had debut wins, congratulations to them as well.
I think Kenmore West, when you take a look at Zach Bowes, and then the fact that they dominated West Seneca West after what the Indians have done in the past few years as far as record for Mike Pistola, it's interesting. It'll be interesting to see how they match up this week and see if they can get back on the win track. But Mike Pistola said they only have a young team. I think it was three players were returned, I think, on the defensive side of the ball. Even though they have Liam Shore and the outstanding linebacker,
Mike Klitsky.
The bottom line is league's going to be very competitive.
Absolutely.
And I really blew it last week when I said West Seneca West is easily one of the class A. And I'll have to take that back because they didn't demonstrate that against the Blue Devils.
Well, it was just week 1. We're going to be back in just a few moments on Inside High School Football Weekly with Dick Gallagher. I'm Frank Wolf. Be back after a word from our sponsors.
Hey, Josh Allen.
Hey, thanks for coming by.
Big fan.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm all about that teamwork.
Yeah, that's West Her. Get the right people, working together, making connections. In fact, show me what you got. I'm going along.
Really?
Made me work for it, but anything worth doing.
Listen, I know you're good at this TV deal, but maybe you should try the football thing.
We didn't get here by accident. It starts with a plan to protect your future, to invest in your future. It started with Scroy Financial. Plan, protect, invest. Scroy Financial.
We needed a plan to protect what matters most. By investing in our future, that all started with Scroy Financial. Plan, protect, invest. Scroy Financial.
Why do you exercise? To look better? To feel better? To drop a few pounds? To train for an event? To defy age? or to keep your ability to say yes to the things you love to do. Whatever motivates you, G&G Fitness Equipment is here to get you there. Treadmills, ellipticals, rowers, bikes, home gyms, and accessories. We'll pair you with the right equipment, teach you how to use it, and be there every step of your fitness journey. G&G Fitness. Your goal is our goal.
Welcome back to WNY Athletics High School Football Weekly. I'm Frank Wolf, joined by Dick Gallagher from WGRZ High School Sports. And Dick, we were talking about some of the teams that won in Week 1 and some of the players that had really breakout performances. And just continuing on with that theme, down in Class B, Pioneer, East Aurora, Looport, Lakeshore, all with big wins in B1 and B2. Maryvale, Iroquois, Maritime, the charter school, they had wins. Lackawanna, Depew, Albion, they all won in B3. Nobody in B4 won. They all lost down in B4. So take that for what it may. I know Tonawanda was looking to have a really good start to the season. They fell to Lackawanna Week 1, but they're still on top of their division in B4. They haven't lost a game to a division opponent yet.
Well, I think that in B4, you know, 5 teams lost, but I think Tonawanda is still the force. To me, if you take a look at Iroquois and their domination of Timon surprised me. And Blake Owens came up with a season stats, never mind one game stats, and led the Chiefs to victory. And so that, when you take a look at it, Pioneer, it's got a lot of those kids back. They're well-versed related to important games. They're going to be a force. And I think Albion, who's really been under the radar screen, even though they've had a wonderful record the last couple of years, they're going to be a force with Adam Grunning at the helm.
Yeah, we talked about Mike Neer a little bit earlier in the first segment, but Gino Fontanerosa, I'm going to butcher that, Looport, he had 3 touchdowns in that big win over Medina. They blanked them. A lot of shutouts in Week 1. I don't know if you noticed that, but I noticed at least 7 or 8 shutouts from Friday and Saturday, maybe more. Christian Pagano, Joe's younger brother, from Depew. He had over 200 yards rushing,
right?
And I believe he scored on an 80-yard touchdown run. So there's another Pagano at Depew that you're going to have to start.
I think it was his first touch of the game. He won 80 yards for a touchdown.
Well, what a ceremonious beginning to his high school football career at the varsity level. I don't recall him getting into any action last year, but they had said that Depew might not have any offensive weapons. Well, Pagano's off to a good start, gives them at least some hope that there might be more than just a quarterback there.
It's in the genes.
It must be. You mentioned Iroquois. They had their nice win. Blake Nolan, 3 touchdowns? How many touchdowns? I don't know how many touchdowns he accounted for, but 227 yards and 3 touchdowns at least. That was a really nice win over Bishop Timon in a crossover game. Well, in a non-conference game.
I thought Timon was going to be a lot better. They have 5 linemen that are seniors, and they've been around for 4 years. But Iroquois really had a young team last year. They still have a young team, a lot of underclassmen, but they've got some players, and they demonstrated that against the Tigers.
In that Lackawanna game, I believe it was Drew Kowalski had like double-digit tackles, and he was a force to be reckoned with. So watch out for Lackawanna's defense, and Kowalski's a guy you're going to want to key in on. Maryvale, the one player I remember from that game hearing about was McCoy, Donovan McCoy. I believe it was a 30-yard fumble recovery for a touchdown that helped them seal Cleve Hill's fate that day. Maryvale usually does get by Cleve Hill, do they not, in Week 1?
Yeah, and
Looking back.
And McCoy, I think, had several tackles in that game, too.
Yeah. He's going to be good. Aiden Smith from Akron, really good first game. He's primed for a pretty good year. He had 3 touchdowns for Akron. I think he had 2 rushing touchdowns and 1 receiving touchdown. Akron this week has a pretty good game. We'll talk about that in the last segment there. JFK, their quarterback, Jack Flighton, heard a little bit about him last year, but this year he's really putting it together. Obviously, first game, 4 touchdowns, 2 rushing, and he threw 2 touchdowns. But Wilson, though, they lost Marcel Wilson, the wide receiver. They lost Steve Frericks, the quarterback. But get this, Braden Dunlap, Declan Ferry, and Drew Westmoreland, all guys that returned, each of them had 2 touchdowns in that game. So Wilson looks like they're going to be an offensive powerhouse yet again. And they go to JFK this Saturday, and WNY Athletics will be there with an audio broadcast. You'll be able to hear that game on the Mixler channel. Down East Aurora's TJ Marsh. Don't know much about him yet, but he had close to 150 yards and 2 touchdowns in East Aurora Holland's victory last weekend.
Shane McSwan, whose father was at Niagara Wheatfield out Western New York, Alfred, outstanding college career. He's superintendent of Cleveland Hill District. But Shane is a senior. He's a 3-year starter. He had, I think, 13 tackles. He dominates the linebacker positions. Also carries the ball as a running back. So if you look at the Bees and you look at B4, they didn't win a game. If you look at the others, there's going to be a lot of competition, given the way that it's set up this year, with five leagues and 2 teams from each league making the playoffs. You're going to have some quality teams not making the playoffs.
No doubt about it. Continuing on, some of the teams from C-South that were really impressive. Fredonia, Nick Whitfield, he was pretty good. I believe he rushed for 2 touchdowns, threw for another. They won 21-0 over Gowanda. So the Fredonia off to a running start as they make their debut down in Class C. Portville, Jaden Lassiter, 5 carries, 120-plus yards, 4 touchdowns. 3 rushing, 1 receiving. 2 of his rushing touchdowns were for 60 and 47 yards. Not too shabby. Had a 35-yard touchdown catch as well. So Portville, we had talked last week that they might be a team to keep your eye on. Are they in C or D? I'm messing this up.
They returned a significant number of starters.
Yeah.
They had it down a couple of years, but they've got the strength and they've got the stats. I think they play Southwestern. I think it's this week, either week 2 or week 3. And Southwestern, to me, is just going to dominate Class E South. When you take the kids that are coming back, and then you add Conrad Thomas and Tyrone White from Dunkirk, transfers, also Adam Rott from Silver Creek, then you're just making that team the most competitive, I think, in Class C. And to me, even it's only 1 week, they have to be considered the favorite to wind up representing Western New York in the playoffs.
They very well may. I know that in that Southwestern game, Conrad Thomas did stand out. He was all over the field, but one player that they told me we're going to have to keep our eye on is from Chautauqua Lake, a kid by the name of Ryan Jafarijan. I think I said it right. Number 24, he's a senior running back, linebacker, and I was told by one of my minions that was at the game that this was the best football player on the field all night. They just couldn't block for him. He's a very tough runner. He just, every time as soon as he touched the ball, there was 3 or 4 Trojans on him, so that tells you a lot about the Trojan defense too.
They've got a lot of kids back on the defense too, and Cooper Panas is now West New York candidate. So the Trojans have been in the sectional championship 3 consecutive years. They've lost to Cleve Hill. This year they could turn the table.
Down in Class D, CSP, I believe that winning streak's up to 11 now. Connor Cooper, 126 yards on the ground, a pair of touchdowns. They were very impressive in the opening win against Geneseo without having much time to prepare for them, so they came out and shut them out. Kudos to Coach Harper and is it Frank Payne or Chris Payne? One of the Paynes.
Frank Payne is coaching at Clarence.
Okay, so it's Chris Payne down there. He's going to give me a left hook when he sees me this Saturday night. But
defensive
yes,
coordinator.
Yes,
yeah.
He did a wonderful job. Franklinville, Ellicottville. Moving on from Coach Bartosik, I believe it's Jason Marsh down there. First year head coach with Franklinville, Ellicottville. Is it Jason Marsh?
I think whoever wins that game between CSP and Franklin and the Titans, that they'll wind up winning the championship.
Yep, it is Jason Marsh, but 2 guys down there had very good games. It was Logan Frank and Tyler Clear. The 2 of those guys combined for about 270 yards on the ground. Frank had 3 touchdowns, and Tyler Clear had the one touchdown. It was an 89-yard rushing touchdown. So kudos to those guys, and hopefully Franklinville, Ellicottville. Who knows? We might see them in CSP at the stadium. You're right. Randolph, though, they're going to want something to say about it. We thought we had heard that they were a very young team and they were going to go through some kind of growing pains. But don't tell those players that, because they destroyed Salamanca this past weekend. They blanked them. Tyler Hind and his cousin Isaac, they both had 2 touchdowns each. Tyler Hind a pick 6. Isaac Hind had a 99-yard kickoff return. He also had a 3-yard touchdown run, and Hind had a QB sneak.
Tyler Hind is a tremendous basketball player, and I think he's committed to Damon to play basketball in college.
So that was our week 1 top performers, top to bottom. We're going to take another quick break, and when we come back, we're going to see who the Connolly Cup liked in week 1 and who the Trench Trophy selected for the Trench Trophy nominations this past week. We'll be right back after a word from our sponsors.
Why do you exercise? To look better? To feel better? To drop a few pounds? To train for an event? To defy age? Or to keep your ability to say yes to the things you love to do? Whatever motivates you, G&G Fitness Equipment is here to get you there. Treadmills, ellipticals, rowers, bikes, home gyms, and accessories. We'll pair you with the right equipment, teach you how to use it, and be there every step of your fitness journey. G&G Fitness. Your goal is our goal.
Welcome back to WNYathletics.com, High School Football Weekly. I am Frank Wolf, joined by Dick Gallagher from WGRZ High School Sports. Monsignor Martin wasn't really a good day for all 6 teams over there, but usually the first week they're playing out of conference games. They leave the state, and they don't really see each other in week 1. In fact, O'Hara didn't even play. St. Mary's played a team from Canada. Iroquois played Bishop Timon, and that wasn't really a great game for Bishop Timon. Canisius went to Euclid, Ohio to take on the number 9 team in Ohio. Tyler Baker had a very good day, but not much to really write about in terms of how they did against that Ohio team. I believe he had 4 touchdowns and 4 rushing touchdowns and 1 passing touchdown. I believe that was his final stats. Rushed for over 200 yards. But we do know their quarterback that transferred in from Warsaw already left Canisius. So right now, Tyler Baker has nobody behind him. I believe they're calling up someone from the JV team, but they lost the quarterback, left after finding out he wasn't going to be the starter. He went to Pioneer, so he didn't play week 1 with Jim Dupree's team. Maybe you'll see him this week, but the other kid from Warsaw left, and I have no idea where he went, possibly back to Warsaw. But Tyler Baker is right now the only quarterback on the roster for Canisius. We'll have to see how they do. I think they'll open up that passing game a little bit more. They're taking on McDowell, who just beat St. Joe's last Saturday, and that really wasn't a fun one for the Marauders. They'll look to see if they can't get things rolling against Bennett on Saturday. I was down in Erie last Friday for the St. Francis game, expecting a better game out of the Erie Royals because they had beat St. Francis last year 35-21, but it was all St. Francis. They pretty much pulled their starters after the half. Jake Ritz and Xavier Janzelik. I wanted to nominate them for Connolly Cup, but since the game is out of state, they won't put them in because of that, which is okay, but because they're going to be on the Connolly Cup nominee list at some point. But Jake Ritz and Janzelik, those 2 guys, I believe they combined for 400 yards and 7 touchdowns. It was not a fun game to be at if you were a fan of the Erie Royals.
I think when you take a look at it, Monsignor Martin, they're not getting any games in the section, or most of them aren't. And the teams that they play in Ohio, Pennsylvania, other areas, are some of the class teams in the state and in those areas. With St. Joe's, it'll be interesting to see what happens this week with Canisius and the team that
St. Joe's and Bennett.
And then week 2, St. Joe's is playing Bennett, which is going to be a very physical game. And then in week 3, St. Joe's plays Canisius. So I think those 2 games are really going to tell a lot about the quality of ball and MMA football against local teams look at the Iroquois by 30 points over time, and no one would have predicted that.
Not after the way Iroquois played last year.
Yeah, but the Catholics can say this is the year of the quarterback because they've got a few outstanding quarterbacks. Then you look at Cardinal O'Hara, there was some confusion. Did they forfeit a game or not? They just didn't have the players that had enough practice to be able to play. And I think that the team from Virginia just said, don't worry about forfeiting, and we don't want that on your record. But Cardinal O'Hara is not anywhere this year going to be like they were good, had so much talent last year. And I think when you look at it, St. Francis in the large schools, and right now I thought Timon going in would be the favorite. Right now, I'd take those three teams, and it's a pick 'em.
Yeah, I may take a ride out to O'Hara this Saturday to see how they do, see how many kids are on the sideline. I'm told they do have some skilled players, just light on numbers as we talked about last week, and it's been well reported and documented on our website and others. That O'Hara's in it's just one of those years for Coach Shaq Dudley. He's just going to have to weather through, and with I think Ann Chandra's help, the two of them together will get O'Hara back on the map. They had a great year last year. They're just going to have some trying times this year, but they very easily could be playing at the end of the year at UB for the small school championship.
UB, it's got a lot of players. They've got like 11 or 12 players out of the 99 from Western New York, but they also have maybe 10 more from Rochester area. So they get some balance related to utilizing the talent. But I think one of the stats, I think it's either 12 or 13, I think it's 12 Western New York players are on NFL teams or CFL teams. That speaks volumes related to the quality. If some of these kids were playing in the South, they'd be already having scholarships.
I agree. As with any week in high school football in this area, there are two committees that hand out awards at the end of the year, but each year they nominate players for the Trench Trophy, which goes out to senior linemen only. Senior linemen to qualify, so if you're a sophomore, junior lineman, you won't be recognized by the Trench Trophy on a weekly basis, but your time is coming, so just keep on putting in the work. But this was sent to us by the Trench Trophy. Their Week 1 nominees from Kenmore West, Matt Shimura, Pioneers, Aaron Doyle, Southwestern's Cooper Panis, Iroquois, Ben Planka, West Seneca East, Colin Wiley, and from Bennett, Jeremiah Williams. And again, that's for senior linemen only. Now, the Connolly Cup is open to anyone, and they have their nominations for Week 1. None of mine got in, so I'll have to call Dennis Sorrow and say, hey, do you pay attention to my emails or not? I know he does, but I got to bust some chops every now and again, right?
Well, at one time, the Connolly Cup just cut it off at 10. Now I think they've, expanded on that, and that's really a tribute to the players with the outstanding performances, not just Week 1, but throughout the season. And Connolly the committee sometimes, particularly when they have to get down the final 10 at the end of the year, that is like going to your dentist, not a healthy experience.
No, well, they do have 15 players that made the list this week, and here are your Connolly Cup Week 1 nominations. Aiden Smith, Akron, Dejai Perry from Bennett, Christian Pagano, Depew, Blake Nolan, Iroquois, Zach Boyce, Kenmore West, Gino Fontana Rosa from Newport, Justin Goldsmith, Niagara Falls quarterback, Keegan Mancabelli from Orchard Park, Jack Sharp from Orchard Park, Tyler Eli and Trey Hill, both from Pioneer, Mikkel Hepburn from South Park, who had an unbelievable debut as a quarterback there at South Park. Excellent job, Mikkel. Joe Carlson from Star Point, Jamal Lucas, who we have talked about already, Sweet Home, and then Davari Mathis from West Seneca East were all Week 1 nominations by the Connolly Cup. They are automatically, they're going to win T-shirts. They'll have them delivered, and they're already entered into the finalists. The top 10, we'll have to see if any of these guys carry on throughout the year. There are a number of them already that are predicted to be in the final 10. We'll have to see. You don't see Jake Ritz. You don't see Xavier Janzelik. You don't see Galarza from Will South, guys that we think should have very good years. They haven't made it yet, but it's a long season, and usually you will not see the same player in the first 4 weeks. The Connolly Cup, they try to get out there and see a bunch of different kids. So if you were nominated Week 1, don't expect to see your name again until at least Week 5. Even if you have 17 touchdowns and 7,000 yards, you won't see your name until probably Week 5. They want to recognize as many kids, as many schools as possible. So don't expect to see your name next week or in 3 or 4.
And that's not good for the kids as more kids getting honored, but it also is a lot easier years and years ago because you would have kids, some players, maybe 5 of the 10 finalists that were recipient every week. For 5 or 6 weeks they were on that. And what Dennis and the committee has done is just broaden that, and it's all about what everyone does to enhance the reputation of the players and give them the recognition that they're due.
Absolutely. And with that, we're going to take another break here at WNY Athletics High School Football Weekly, but enjoy the highlight reel from Week 1, courtesy of CSA Prepstar and my good friend Tom Repicci. Appreciate you putting this little video together for us and for our viewers. Have fun watching these clips from Week 1. We'll be back in just a few moments after the highlight reel.
We didn't get here by accident. It starts with a plan to protect your future, to invest in your future. It started with Scroy Financial. Plan, protect, invest. Scroy Financial.
We needed a plan to protect what matters most. By investing in our future, that all started with Scroy Financial. Plan, protect, invest. Scroy Financial.
Welcome back to WNY Athletics High School Football Weekly. I'm Frank Wolf, joined by Dick Gallagher, WGRZ High School Sports. Dick, we're on to week 2, and there are a number of teams that fell week 1, but they're getting new players in that had transferred late or might have missed a couple weeks because of injuries. They're back and rolling, so they're going to have opportunities to get into that win column. One team I'm looking at is Cheektowaga, which struggled against Maritime with turnovers and things of that nature. I expect Cheektowaga to get back on the field, and they have Aaron Smith from Bennett. I believe that's his last name, Aaron Smith. We saw him last year. Pretty good guy, can throw the ball, good athlete, and I think he's going to do wonders for Cheektowaga, which seemed to struggle in throwing the ball last week. So Cheektowaga is one team. The other one is Cleve Hill. When's the last time Cleve Hill wasn't ranked in a small school poll? I don't remember that.
The one thing I can't understand, and I'm on the poll committee, is St. Joe's, I think, is number 10. When you look at the other schools that aren't in the top 10, some of them had really outstanding wins, and St. Joe's lost by 25 points. I think if you're on the committee, you can't have an allegiance to a particular school. You have to be able to have some just perseverance and just making the best every week, top 10 teams. Yeah. But we'll see what happens. Last year, even though the St. Francis had a winning record, when you take a look at the quality of the ball, Canisius and St. Joe's, it wasn't the quality of some of the other teams that were not ranked in that top 10 during the season. But it is what it is.
I didn't even look at the large school, to be honest with you. I have no idea how they ranked them 1 through 10. But I mean, you got to believe Lancaster, St. Francis are up there. The only thing about the rankings and the pollsters that I would change is I wouldn't have any coaches vote on a top 10 in either. How could you expect Coach A to rank all these teams when he's so in tune with what his own team is doing? He's worried about game planning, rosters, bus schedules, whatever. How does he have time to watch film of these other schools to see who's ranked when and where? No coach should be involved on those polls whatsoever. And I have a great deal of respect for all those coaches, don't get me wrong. But there's no way that coach is going to have the time to put in to watch these other games. There's enough people out there that would be able to do it, that get to see 3-4 teams, and they read the clippings and they have people they can rely on for information. But for a coach to do it, I just think it's ridiculous.
Like I would have Tom Prince on the committee.
Absolutely.
Mainly just it is only one Tom Prince, but there's a lot of people that also follow high school football and would be really good contributors. And maybe that's something next year the News will take a look at and just change the way, at least the composition of the committee.
The News really doesn't want to put WNY Athletics on anything. But hopefully that'll change someday.
I've been on the committee so long, I could be considered a dinosaur.
But really, I was surprised not to see Cleve Hill. I mean, here's a team that just wins the Section 6 Class C title year after year after year. They play Maryvale. They play them tough. They don't have the Javon Thomas anymore, Aaron Waller, but still, it's Cleve Hill. It's a Glenn Graham coach team. For them not to be ranked in the top 10, honestly, I was surprised by that. There's no respect for that team, and that's just a shame because they should be in the top 10. You don't want to put them in the top 5, 6, okay, but they deserve to be ranked, and I think they're going to show you not only this week, but the weeks to come, that they are still the kings of Class C. Until someone beats them at the stadium or prevents them from going to the stadium, that's the king of Class C. In Southwestern, they looked excellent. They looked really good. But until you beat Cleve Hill, they are the kings of Class C.
It's a good point, and I'm glad that in my poll for the week 1, I have Cleve Hill in the top 10. I think I might have had them at 7.
All right. Good. But, and it was nice to see CSP on that list. I believe they came in the top 5, so good to see them starting to get some respect. I'm heading down to Silver Creek Saturday night as part of a broadcast. Kurt Fisher will be joining me, and we're going to do play-by-play of CSP versus Silver Creek. I know earlier in the day, John Simon and Jake Fyack will be doing the Wilson JFK game, 2 undefeated teams in C, looking to make a name for themselves. And on Friday night, Mark Johnson and Timmy Morozek are going to be at the Kenmore West McKinley game. That's out at Riverside. So a number of really good games on Friday night, and of course spilling over into Saturday. Now, if you stay on the WNYathletics.com website throughout the night on Friday, if you can't get out to the games, just keep refreshing the scoreboard page for football. Last week we had almost 10,000 people on that scoreboard page, and we're thinking that might even double this week. But honestly, if you're looking for scores around Section 6 and Monsignor Martin, we have them on the website, on our scoreboard. We update it as often as we possibly can. Scores are coming in left and right, and we're updating it, so it's there for your enjoyment. And for your, so you can get the scores, late-breaking scores of each game. You can clock watch if you want, scoreboard watch. And that's going on Friday, that's Saturday, all throughout the games. We have them all on there for you. But at the same time, on Friday night, most games are done around 9:15. Francis Beck and John Simon have the Friday night final drive show. Now, it's an audio broadcast only on our Mixler channel. You can see the links on Twitter, Facebook, and things of that nature. Follow us on the website. But their show was fantastic last Friday. They went through every single game, kept on updating it. They highlighted, the different players that were having good days. They're going to do that again this Friday. So, Dick, at 9:30 p.m., go to our Mixler.com/WNY Athletics page, and you'll be able to hear Francis and John talk about all the games. And it was a very insightful show, and there's nothing else like it in Western New York. So kudos to those guys for putting it together. We may be going to a Saturday Facebook show, Saturday morning Facebook show. We may start doing that. We're trying to see what kind of feedback we're going to get. We've put that word out there. Do you want a Saturday morning Facebook show with Inside High School Sports enthusiasts and that sort of thing? And we'll do a live video on possibly on Facebook or YouTube or somewhere. But we're putting the feelers out for that because people want to know what's going on and stay close to all the football action.
And anyone that's watching right now, listening, is smiling at what you and your team are doing to enhance high school football, high school sports in Western New York. And you're really to be commended because I've seen you in operation. I've seen a lot of your people and heard a lot of your people do the games. Outstanding coverage, and it's something that's been missing here, and it's really filling a void. And I've always believed if there's an opportunity, there's a void. You took advantage of the opportunity. You're filling that. Hopefully, for years to come, you'll just be expanding every year.
Well, that's what we're trying to do. Before we end this program, why don't we get your final thoughts on Week 1 and what you're looking forward to Week 2?
I think the final thoughts are teams that expected to be a force that all of a sudden did not do well in Week 1. Just understand the game's won on the field, and you better start paying attention to your coaches, better start paying attention and making sure that the culture of your team is ready to go and play and win Game 2, because the worst part of starting the season is losing the first 2 or 3 games, because then the culture isn't there and also the commitment isn't there sometime. And if you practice hard every play and give 100% and have the right attitude that you're playing the best game that you ever played, you're going to win this week or you're going to be very comfortable in your performance. Make things happen, make a difference, and enjoy the game of football.
And then just for me, Dick, the one thing I want to harp on, and my final thoughts are just to the athletes and even some of the coaches, assistant coaches that I've seen on social media, just watch what you're putting out there. Remember, once you put it out there, it's always out there. You can delete it, but someone somewhere probably took a screenshot of what you said. Be very careful. There's a lot of players that have transferred from school to school that are sending tweets back at their former teammates or back at their former team's Twitter handle and saying some very, very vile things. And I'm going to tell you, kids that do that, that will come back to haunt you every single time. Because here at WNY Athletics, I get a number of calls from college coaches interested in a certain player, and they're asking us, how is this kid off the field? What's he like? We can see what he does with the stats. We can see game film. But is this a kid we want in our locker room? Is this a kid we want to welcome into our culture? And we're honest. If we see that stuff, we're not quiet about it. So you got to watch what you put out there on social media. I see kids that leave a program to play, for maybe a team that's going to play for a championship, and they leave their teammates behind that might have issues with numbers for whatever reason, and they're trashing them. Why would you're the one that left the program. You're the one that quit on those kids. You shouldn't be putting anything out there disparaging that old team or those kids because they stuck it out. You didn't. And if you think for a second college coaches don't see that, you're missing the boat. Watch what you put out there on social media because we're watching, and I know those college coaches are watching. You're only hurting yourself. So a quick laugh, or a quick 5, 10, 15-second laugh, taking a shot at a former teammate, coach, or player, you're only hurting yourself. You're not hurting them. You're hurting yourself. And that's all I have to say about that. And I hope we don't have to keep on addressing it, but I'm sure we will.
And every school should have someone, I don't care if it's an assistant coach or a part of the administration, every school should be monitoring the social media. And those kids that are putting that trash on there should suffer the consequences. And if they're kids that are playing football that want to be also known as a punk or a jerk, then it's your life, and everything can change. And coaches, college coaches, many times will not be going and recruiting quality athletes that really deserve attention and recognition if they display poor sportsmanship, if they're not academically qualified, and other necessary attributes, particularly a good attitude. You have to remember, every time you go to a game and play a game, everyone is watching you. Everyone is watching you, and you do not know what college coaches are in the stand. You do not know what other people in the stands that are monitoring what you're doing. So instead of being a jerk or a punk, be a class act, and you'll benefit from that.
Case in point, last Thursday night at the North Tonawanda Wheatfield game, someone came up to me and said, hey, I really enjoy what you guys do at WNY Athletics. You guys put on a really good website. I get a lot of information from you. Now this person, you would never know he was from a college out in the Rochester area. He did not have any colors on, any school emblems, nothing. He looked like a regular fan sitting in the stands. He gave me his card. He was at a premier school that a lot of kids from Western New York go and play at. So they're there. Just because you don't see an Alabama hat or Alfred State hat or an Albany hat on or a shirt doesn't mean they're not there. Remember that. So, for episode 2, for Dick Gallagher from WGRZ High School Sports, I am Frank Wolf, WNY Athletics. Thank you for watching. See you next week.
WNYathletics.com is the premier high school sports website in Western New York, providing the best sports coverage of Section 6 and Monsignor Martin leagues. Check out our page for daily game recaps and late-breaking sports news. Our online scoreboards are updated in real time. Never miss a goal or touchdown. Visit WNYathletics.com today or follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook, and subscribe to our YouTube.